Thank you very much. We want to bring in Phil Andrew again, former FBI agent and founder of the PAX Group. Phil, thanks again for joining us tonight. It's coming up on 11:30 Eastern. You've been kind enough to share your time with us all day. I think as we all look back at this wild afternoon, I think the question will be, where were the police?
That's a good question, and I think now that we've got some of the nation's business behind us, it is smart to start turning to what just happened here, and why was the Capitol not more prepared? How did this mob gain access to the building, and where was the emergency response to supplement the Capitol Police in short order? So there are some important questions here, and I think that it's going to require a fair amount of introspection by the Capitol Police. What were they expecting here that they did not fully prepare for the magnitude of the protests that they had? Clearly, they've managed major protests in the past. Black Lives Matter, Million Man March, the Women's March, protests galore. And they haven't resulted in this. So something went wrong in their planning, and something went wrong where a breach was made.
And in the coordination, because you have several different agencies having to work together and respond, and for a while it felt like Capitol Police and even DC Metro Police were left out on a bit of an island. It took a while before the National Guard was brought into the scene at the extent that we saw it in the end, hours after this had unfolded.
Yes, it does appear that DC Metro, the National Guard, and other agencies weren't staged to even help. Generally, in these scenarios, the backup is staged within the perimeter so that it can just help move quickly to fill any gaps and shore up any weaknesses in the line. Here, we saw the caravans having to move through the melee just to get to the crisis site. So a lot went wrong here, but also a few things went right. Eventually, the cavalry did come. Virginia, Maryland, DC Metro, the National Guard did arrive, and other state and federal agencies, but it was late.
And Phil, we've been saying this all afternoon and all evening tonight, that this is getting global reaction. The world is reacting to this. These are stunning images to come out of this country and from our Capitol during what was supposed to be, and what still is arguably, a very important day for Congress taking care of the business of certifying a presidential result. I just wonder, though, for certain actors watching this footage and seeing these pictures today, what other domestic or foreign terrorists might be thinking, what other lone wolves may be thinking. We just had that very bizarre incident in downtown Nashville. The image that goes out to the rest of the country and to the world and to those who mean us harm, both foreign and domestic, is that the Capitol is much more vulnerable than we ever could have imagined. And even though security will be tightened in the aftermath of this, what happened today still happened today, and seems like a gaping hole in what should be one of the most secure buildings in the country.
In the world.
In the world.
I agree. I think this is disturbing. These are lessons already learned, whether it be 9/11, Oak Bomb, you name the catastrophic attack that's resulted in destruction and loss of life, and these are lessons learned. I have a real easy time drawing the analogy here to an active shooter in a school. That clearly we knew this shooter was coming. There was plenty of time to prepare. Not only did the shooter penetrate, but it took a lot of time to repel it. And this would be completely unacceptable in a school environment today, in many workplaces, but here it happened in the Capitol. So I agree that it's disturbing. I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned. There may be some finger pointing, but it also shows strength of resolve. That something tragically wrong happened. There obviously were mistakes made, but the resiliency both of the Capitol Police, the coordination of the law enforcement effort shows that once that is mustered, it can be very, very effectively deployed. But we should just know better from a planning standpoint. This is crisis planning 101, and there's going to be some questions as to whether people have learned the lessons we've already should have.
Well, and with your experience in the FBI, take us into the war room and the evaluation that takes place, and how soon does that process begin to get ready and to mend whatever vulnerabilities were exposed today? I mean, is that happening as we speak? I mean, there's still lots of people outside the Capitol and potentially planned protests here as we lead up to Inauguration Day.
Well, precisely. We've got a number of other very important events that are part of our ritual in the peaceful passing of power, and those should be allowed to proceed. Those agencies should be scrutinizing this immediately. Now, I think there's some investigation and there's some mop-up to do with with a crisis site. There's probably evidence to collect still. I think we should be thinking of the Capitol as a crime scene. There's a lot of evidence to collect there, both electronically, things that people have left behind. There'll be a lot of investigation, I'd hope, around social media for those folks that presented themselves in the commission of a crime. That is low-hanging fruit. So I absolutely, the agencies should be turning themselves to what we should be doing defensively to prevent this from happening again. But the hard work of figuring out what went wrong should start immediately, because this is an immediate issue. This could happen again tomorrow. Let's hope it hasn't. I think cooler heads will prevail. But there is a threat environment in the U.S. right now with domestic terrorism, with foreign terrorists, with cyber disruptions and cyber terrorism, that all of these things, we can't show weakness, and I think we need to show that we are up to the task in defending both the Capitol and the nation as a whole.
And you just used an interesting phrase there. I want to follow up just very briefly. Do you consider this to be an act of domestic terrorism?
Well, when you break down the definition of domestic terrorism, whereby force, threat, or actual violence, you are trying to influence for political purposes some outcome, it does have that ring. And I think that just as we tried to kind of digest what happened in Nashville a few weeks ago, this investigation needs to unfold. Was this just uncontrolled crowd? Did people arrive with this intent? There's literally audio you can overhear, even from some of your own reporting, where people are expressing their intent for what they wanted to do to the Capitol. And I think all that stuff has to be digested before coming to a conclusion like that. But it has the indicators that this was everything about affecting and influencing the processes taking place in that democratic institution. Right. So it would strike as an attempt of domestic terrorism.
And Brian Enton hinted at that as well. The protesters he had talked to, they made no bones about it. That's what they were there for, in their opinion, was to try to overturn this. Phil, Andrew, clearly a planning issue. And as we look at this video, even side by side with your comments, you see one or two, maybe three or four of these officers, and then getting overrun by what appear to be, ants of protesters running everywhere. It brings the question, where was everyone? I think I understood there were 2,000 officers on the Capitol Police Force. You would certainly think that there are enough typically on assignment there during any given day, but it certainly didn't look like it today.
No, there was inefficient personnel there to support this mission today, and there should have been backup, and there should have been backup from other agencies on site ready to fill those weaknesses in the line.
Phil, Andrew, as always, you've really been beneficial, and we're thankful to have had you all throughout today, since we've been on the air since roughly 2 o'clock this afternoon. Appreciate your insight and your perspective, as always.
Thank you as well.